My child, stop scrolling and become still for a moment, because what has just unfolded around the person connected to your heart was not ordinary. Something was discovered. Something that had been hidden beneath assumptions, half-truths, and carefully chosen words finally came into the light. And when your soulmate understood what had truly been happening around you, they made a decision that surprised even the person standing before them. They cut someone off. Not because of anger alone. Not because of one careless conversation. They did it because they finally saw the difference between someone who cared about them and someone who had been quietly trying to influence how they saw you. Do not rush away from this message. There is a reason these words reached you at this exact moment. The truth I am revealing is still unfolding, and the deepest part has not yet been spoken. Your soulmate did not wake up planning to remove anyone from their life. They were not searching for conflict. They were not waiting for an excuse to walk away. In fact, for a long time, they defended this person. They believed their advice was sincere. They thought their questions were harmless. They assumed the concern being shown to them came from loyalty. But something happened recently that changed the atmosphere completely. A detail was revealed about you. At first, it seemed small. Almost too small to matter. A sentence was repeated. A conversation from the past was mentioned. Your name was brought up in a way that did not match the truth your soulmate had begun to feel in their spirit. And in that moment, a quiet uneasiness entered their heart. They did not react immediately. They listened. They watched. They allowed the person to continue speaking, because something within them whispered, "Let them reveal more." And they did. The person who had been standing close to your soulmate had said things about you before, but always carefully. Never enough to appear cruel. Never direct enough to be confronted. Their words were disguised as concern. Their doubts were presented as protection. Their questions sounded innocent, yet every question left your soulmate feeling slightly more confused about you. That confusion had been planted slowly, one thought at a time. But this time, the mask slipped. Stay with this message, because what your soulmate heard next did not merely make them suspicious. It awakened them. They suddenly remembered every moment when this person had changed the subject after your name was mentioned. They remembered the strange silence whenever something positive happened between you. They remembered how this person always found a reason to question your intentions, your feelings, your timing, or your loyalty. Your soulmate began connecting moments that once seemed unrelated. They remembered a conversation when they had spoken warmly about you and the person responded with an uncomfortable smile. They remembered sharing a private hope about your connection, only to feel strangely discouraged afterward. They remembered being told not to trust what they felt, not to move too quickly, not to reach out, not to believe that you were sincere. At the time, those warnings seemed protective. Now they sounded calculated. Something inside your soulmate became very quiet. Not weak. Not uncertain. Quiet in the way the sky becomes still before a powerful change. They looked at this person differently. For the first time, they were not hearing only the words being spoken. They were hearing the intention behind them. And the intention was no longer hidden. The person had not simply misunderstood you. They had been threatened by what you represented. Your presence awakened something real in your soulmate, something this person could not control. When your soulmate thought of you, they became more honest with themselves. They began questioning old patterns. They started imagining a different future. They became less dependent on the opinions of those around them. And someone close to them noticed this change before your soulmate fully understood it. That person realized that if your soulmate trusted their heart, their influence would weaken. So they began planting distance. Not through obvious lies at first, but through suggestions. Through doubts. Through carefully timed remarks. Through stories that had no proof. Through comparisons designed to make your soulmate feel uncertain. They wanted your soulmate to believe that loving you would lead to disappointment. They wanted your soulmate to associate your name with confusion rather than peace. But what they did not understand was that truth has a way of returning. My child, you may have wondered why the connection between you and your soulmate felt warm one moment and distant the next. You may have sensed a shift without understanding where it came from. You may have questioned yourself, replayed your words, examined your actions, and wondered whether you had somehow ruined something beautiful. You did not know that another voice had entered the space between you. You did not know that after certain conversations with you, your soulmate would speak to this person. You did not know that moments of progress were sometimes followed by private discussions filled with doubt. You did not know that someone had been quietly interpreting your actions for them, teaching them to see hidden motives where none existed. But heaven saw it. Every conversation. Every manipulation. Every moment when your soulmate almost followed their heart but stepped back because someone convinced them to be afraid. Nothing was unseen. And now the pattern has been exposed. The discovery did not arrive in the dramatic way this person feared. It came through their own carelessness. They mentioned something they should not have known. A private detail. A detail your soulmate had never shared with them. Pause here, because this is where the situation changed. Your soulmate asked a simple question, "How do you know that?" The person hesitated. Only for a moment, but the hesitation was enough. Your soulmate asked again. This time, the answer came too quickly. It was filled with unnecessary explanation. The person tried to laugh. They changed one part of the story and then corrected themselves. They claimed someone else had told them, but the name they gave did not make sense. Your soulmate felt the truth before they could prove it. This person had been gathering information about you. They had been asking questions. Watching your actions. Listening to conversations that were not meant for them. They had collected fragments of your story and arranged them into a version designed to support their own intentions. Yet the most shocking discovery was still ahead. Your soulmate did not confront them immediately. Instead, they became calm. They allowed the person to keep talking. And the more the person spoke, the more they revealed. What began as a defense slowly became a confession without them realizing it. They admitted that they had spoken to someone who knew you. They admitted that they had asked about your past. They admitted that they had repeated certain things to your soulmate without checking whether they were true. But then your soulmate asked the question that changed everything: why were you so determined to make me doubt them? Silence. The room felt different after that question. The person tried to avoid answering. They said they were only trying to help. They claimed they were worried. They insisted your soulmate was being emotional. But your soulmate was no longer confused. Something within them had become clear. They realized this was never only about protecting them. It was about control. The person had grown comfortable being the voice your soulmate trusted most. They were used to being consulted before every major decision. They were used to shaping how your soulmate interpreted situations. But your connection had begun to change that. Your soulmate was starting to feel something that did not require outside approval. That frightened this person. And fear made them careless. Do not skip what comes next, because this was the moment your soulmate finally understood something important about you. During the confrontation, the person repeated a claim they had made before. They said you were hiding something. They said you were not as sincere as you appeared. They said your soulmate would regret trusting you. But this time, your soulmate asked for proof. There was none. Only opinions. Only assumptions. Only stories that changed whenever they were questioned. Your soulmate then remembered the moments when you had shown patience without demanding recognition. They remembered the way you had remained quiet when you could have defended yourself loudly. They remembered how you had respected their space even when it hurt you. They remembered things about your character that no rumor could erase. And suddenly, your silence was no longer interpreted as guilt. It was understood as dignity. Your distance was no longer seen as indifference. It was recognized as self-protection. Your patience was no longer mistaken for weakness. It was seen as love without control. That realization struck your soulmate deeply. They began to see how unfairly they had judged certain moments. They remembered times when they had withdrawn without explanation. They remembered allowing doubts to change how they treated you. They remembered the confusion in your eyes, the hesitation in your voice, the way you seemed to sense that something had shifted but did not know why. And for the first time, they understood the pain you had carried silently. Something broke open inside them. Not in a destructive way, but in the way a locked door finally opens after years of pressure. They felt regret. They felt anger. But beneath both emotions, they felt a strong desire to protect what had been damaged. The person before them continued trying to justify their actions. They said your soulmate was making a mistake. They warned that cutting them off would prove how much influence you had gained. They even tried to suggest that you had somehow caused the confrontation without being present. But that accusation only confirmed everything. Your soulmate saw it clearly: this person would rather blame you than take responsibility. And then the decision was made. No long speech. No shouting. No dramatic argument. Your soulmate simply said that the relationship could not continue in the same way. They said trust had been broken. They said boundaries had been crossed. They said they would no longer discuss you, their feelings, or their private decisions with someone who had used that information to create confusion. The person was stunned. They did not believe your soulmate would actually choose distance. They had underestimated the strength of the bond forming beneath the surface. For a moment, they tried to make your soulmate feel guilty. They mentioned everything they had done for them. They spoke about loyalty. They claimed they were being abandoned. But your soulmate did not change their mind. Because this time, they understood that history does not excuse manipulation. Being close to someone does not give them the right to control the direction of their heart. And love that demands blindness is not loyalty. My child, your soulmate walked away from that conversation carrying more than anger. They carried a painful awareness of how easily outside voices had shaped their choices. They began reviewing the past in a new light. They questioned every moment when they had allowed someone else to define you. They wondered how different things might have been if they had trusted what they felt from the beginning. They wondered whether you had already given up. They wondered whether they had waited too long. That question has been following them. What if I waited too long? It appeared while they sat alone. It returned when they looked at their phone. It entered their thoughts when they remembered your voice. And each time it came, the feeling grew stronger. Your soulmate now knows that cutting this person off was only the first step. Removing the influence does not instantly repair the damage it caused. They know something must be said to you. But they are afraid. Not afraid of you. Afraid of what your silence might mean. Afraid that you may have built walls they no longer know how to cross. Afraid that you may listen politely but no longer believe them. Afraid that the version of you who once waited with hope may have learned to live without answers. This fear has made them hesitate. Yet the hesitation will not last forever. Something is moving within them now. A courage they have resisted is beginning to rise. They know they cannot continue pretending that the truth does not require action. They know they owe you honesty. Not half-honesty. Not a vague message. Not another confusing sign. Real honesty. They want to tell you who interfered. They want to explain what was said. They want to admit how those words affected their behavior. They want to apologize for the moments when you were treated according to someone else's story instead of your actual heart. But there is one more secret they have not yet faced. The person they cut off was not acting alone. Yes, there is another layer. The conversation exposed more than manipulation. It revealed that someone else had been involved, someone your soulmate never expected. Someone who had access to information about you. Someone who had been quietly feeding details into the situation while remaining invisible. Your soulmate discovered this through a message. After the confrontation ended, their phone received a notification. It came from an unfamiliar number. At first, they almost ignored it. But the first line contained your name. They opened it. The message said, "You need to know the truth about why they were trying to keep you away." Your soulmate froze. The sender claimed to know what had been happening. They said the person who had just been cut off had been communicating with them for weeks. They said the situation was bigger than jealousy. They said there was a reason your connection had been targeted. But they refused to explain everything through text. They asked to meet. Your soulmate did not know whether it was a trap, a confession, or another manipulation. Yet something about the message felt different. It contained a detail no stranger should have known. A detail connected to a moment between you and your soulmate that had never been shared publicly. And that detail changed the entire meaning of what had happened. Because it suggested that someone had been watching your connection much more closely than either of you realized. Do not let fear enter your heart. This is not a message of danger. It is a message of exposure. What has been hidden cannot remain hidden forever. The truth is not rising to destroy your connection. It is rising to remove what was built against it. Your soulmate is now standing at a crossroads. One path allows them to remain silent, protect their pride, and pretend the cutoff was enough. The other path requires them to uncover everything, face their mistakes, and come toward you with the truth. Their heart already knows which path to choose. But before they can reach you, they must discover who sent that message and why your name was at the center of a plan that began long before the confrontation. And as they stared at the screen, another message appeared. This one contained only 7 words. Ask them what happened the night you disappeared. Your soulmate read it once. Then again. Their breath caught, because they knew exactly which night the message was referring to. It was the night everything between you changed. The night they had always believed you walked away without explanation. The night someone told them you had chosen to leave. But now, for the first time, your soulmate began to wonder whether you had ever been given a choice at all.